3 people total detained,
All
questioned,
right.
and no arrests. I texted with the sheriff this morning, and he said we were following up on leads, no arrests, and we still haven't found
Happy
Nancy.
Valentine's
So,
Day,
what
knuckleheads.
do you make of it? Because we saw this happen with the Carlos guy from Rio Rico. What do you think is going on here?
There's something about whatever these two situations
Nancy's still
showed law enforcement. There's something about them that fit their theory of the crime or theory of the suspect is my guess.
Is my disc full on my MacBook.
It could be somebody's come up with a profile.
Which I don't use much, but I like it.
Both of these guys, both of these residences they hit,
I can't see
had a mom with her son living with her. So maybe we've got a profile that we're looking for somebody with a certain criminal background or not.
Those HDMI connectors
with their mom at home.
I've
seen profiles specifically that said you'll be living
that winds
with
up the story.
The mom and not the dad. I've even seen one that says
he used
to live with his mom,
like $10,
but now he's living with an aunt because the mom and he couldn't
on the big screen, then I can see what the hell to do.
And I'm not saying that
I can't.
If that's
I'm
their
trying
profile.
to find
I'm not
out
saying
how
it's their profile.
I found a couple little minuscule
that,
things that I can send to
that
trash.
they got the wrong profile.
But
it's just that not everybody who meets that
movies,
profile is your
I
bad
can't figure
guy.
out how to delete
so
them.
They're having to balance, how close do we think this meets the totality of the circumstances, and are we willing to tire folks out, frazzle the public and things like that for another shot at another bite at this apple.
Yeah, and by the way, the sheriff confirmed today that it was a federal search warrant at that house last night also. Does that mean that a judge or a magistrate had to sign off? And does that mean that there was something?
I don't think they're going to have a presser until they...
Yes, absolutely. The FBI cannot just go out and write a search warrant for themselves and sign it. Actually, the FBI is different. They actually do. The agents write their own search warrants much of the time. They just have to bring it to a judge and have the judge or the magistrate sign it.
So
this had to have, as you said, some meat on the bones. Had to have something that would give a reasonable magistrate, and that's a high bar, by the way, a reasonable magistrate, the belief that they would find something related to this crime at that house. So it wasn't just some agent or some deputy getting together and saying, hey, you know what?
It's about 72.
It's literally thought through,
all the way down
shown to a magistrate, the magistrate agrees, and they sign it. So there was something there. There's no doubt about it. But it wasn't what they were looking for.
One thing I've thought about is with Carlos, the guy from Rio Rico, and we went out there too. He was saying how his delivery driver may have been in that area where Nancy lives, and we know that they're doing all sorts of cell phone tracking, and they can track I think they can track what phones have been close to Nancy's house.
They got a real face off the door
cam. Do you think that that's, and you mentioned a profile, but could that also be a way that they are trying to
his ass up or not?
The scope here and come up with targets?
Yeah, and I think that's very possible. And it's kind of funny. Investigators tend to have things that they rely on, individual guys. One person may rely more on profiling information. One may rely more on cell phone information, something where they feel that they understand it really well. And some agents are really good at that kind of stuff. It's kind of like some baseball players are better fielders than hitters. It's just what you lean on. So it's possible that they're looking at that.
Burn half a tank of gas.
At the phone records. But again,
I need 16 laps.
It can't be just one thing. He was in that area. There were hundreds of people in the vicinity of that house that night. So you have to line it up and get 2 or 3 at minimum other circumstances that also ties you there. You're looking for patterns.
So for a warrant that they would have had to get, since we know it was a federal search, you're saying they would have to have several things. Like how high is the bar?
It can be frustratingly high, I can tell you. You have to show that the person that you're looking at him for this reason, and you might say hypothetically, his phone was in that area. He's made threats. He has actually been in that house, possibly. He meets this profile, although I don't think a profile is going to be admissible on that. So you would have to show actual verifiable facts that would indicate that this not only is this person involved, but the evidence of that crime would be found at that location. So it would actually be a warrant for the location, not the person. But the person who is living there you would have to explain why that house would contain it.
So maybe the fact that the sheriff is saying no arrests, maybe that doesn't mean that this is over in terms of what they were interested in with these people and with this house. I mean, could it just be they didn't make an arrest yet, but there might still be some part of what happened last night that's useful?
Yeah, I mean, unless there's been some statement since then that I have not seen. I, like you, was up most of the night. I think you got less sleep than me, though. I think that what is possible is that they did find evidence of the crime in the house. I'm not alleging that. I'm just saying that they haven't said that this was a complete waste of our time. We're sorry to the people. We don't know how we got this information. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that we've made no arrests. So it's very possible.
And I saw, because I was there, I saw the SWAT teams and sort of the initial, there's probably 24, and there was some FBI, but 24 law enforcement, I would say, in total that went first to the house. They came out, the man and the woman. And then I would say about an hour later, like a sort of a convoy of FBI agents arrived in black trucks, but also like those evidence kind of units that I also saw at Nancy Guthrie's house a couple days ago. What does that mean that they arrived an hour later?
It's a good question. I took it yesterday to mean in real time that this was a planned operation, that this was a lead that was generated, that was obviously looked at carefully enough. You have to go get a warrant from a magistrate. So it was something that they had planned to do. They got everybody lined up. And one of the trademarks of a federal operation is that the cars are literally lined up nose to tail all the way back. It'll be led by the SWAT vehicles if you're going to use them, and then law enforcement to set up roadblocks and stuff. And you'll just come in like a convoy. The fact that the convoy came in later, like an hour later, indicates to me that either that was part of the plan. We're going to secure the area. Then we'll call you in after the interviews. That may have been part of it. Or it was a fast-moving thing. And so while the area was getting secured by tactical teams, they were briefing up all the agents and detectives who were going to go in and setting up an ops plan. And then they came in once everybody was lined up.
If they took phones, can they hold on to those for a while?
Yeah, but they don't really need to unless they're looking for physical evidence on the phone. They can mirror those pretty quickly and basically get every single thing that's on that phone onto their drives fairly quickly. So you can return them, unless you're looking for physical evidence on the phone.
Don Pablo?
And we learned yesterday that they found DNA in Nancy's house that's not Nancy's DNA and not DNA connected to someone in her circle, or it's a stranger's DNA. It sounds like. So I'm assuming last night they would probably swab these people, their DNA. Don't you think? Would that be something that would be important?
Yeah, and unless they had a warrant for that, it would be a voluntary thing. You have to get a warrant for buccal swabs and things like that, where they swab the inside of your mouth. So yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so they losing my voice here.
No, you're fine.
They would have gotten that kind of stuff, DNA evidence, things like that, anything they needed while they were there. And if the people were cooperating, you'd get as much as you can.
Yeah, and I guess if they showed up to my house and I had nothing to do with this, like what Carlos said the other night, why not let them do the swab? I mean, you almost want them to prove that, hey, I'm not the guy.
Coffee bean aroma.
Hearty meal is a real big deal. 50 more is the fear of meals.
Back to school, back to savings at Tomahawk Buick and Chrysler.
Drive the all-new Buick Envista for just $24,695 or finance as low as 0.9%.
Save up to $10,250 on a powerful GMC Sierra or get 0% financing.
At Tomahawk Chrysler, up to $15,341.
I got a premium on the Chromebook on the Asus. Asus. Alright, let's grind up some Pablo 100% limited edition. I think if I was single, I'd get into coffee roasting. Looks like a fun crowd for one thing. I got on the game, I got a coffee roaster company decals I put on my bars. I got it on the Demon, the Dodge Demon. I'm on lap 13. All these guys are back talking again.
It's like not a good investigation, and then they're like, oh my gosh, this was all a waste. And now we've seen another event where it hasn't resulted in an immediate arrest, and it hasn't resulted in finding Nancy. Do you think they're taking that into consideration behind the scenes, or are they just solely focused on the investigation, or do they realize, like, if they keep doing these raids without any thing to show for it, like, people start to lose faith?
Yeah, and it's funny how law enforcement views that. The FBI is very insular, and their thought on this might be, well, they don't have to follow us to go to these places. We're just doing our job, But the sheriff's department is more invested in the community when you think about it. The sheriff has to be elected. His people are in town every single day, by the dozens, patrolling, things like that. So if there's a tension between the citizens of Tucson and the sheriff's office, that really strongly affects the sheriff's office, and it could affect the job of the sheriff. So the sheriff's office is going to be much more attuned to the citizens and their beliefs about this kind of thing and their frustration. The FBI has a culture of putting your head down, getting the job done, and if we screw up, we screw up, but generally we don't, and we're going to get it done as fast as we can. And dealing with the community is really not our job. We're investigators. So I think in this modern internet world here, where people are following these things so closely, and the press is following it for them so closely, the FBI is, if they're the agency I used to work for, is probably realizing we're going to have to do some work on how we deal with the public and expectations and things like this, because going forward, it's not the same world where Walter Cronkite read the news and you just listened. It's almost like everybody has their own home game version.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And you talk about the difference between the sheriff and the FBI too. I mean, the sheriff is elected, sort of has to keep people happy to a certain extent. There's a certain level of like politics involved, where he probably wants progress in some ways for different reasons than the FBI.
Yeah, my dad, coincidentally, when I was like 5 years old, my dad was transferred into Phoenix as an FBI agent. We were there exactly 18 months, and he was transferred to San Francisco, and then he was transferred to New York. I mean, you don't really generally bond with a community in that time. You just work your cases and go. And so, yeah, there is a completely different dynamic between the two agencies. And this explains some of the potential tension between the two agencies. Like, and I'm just speaking hypothetically, but last night, say the sheriff said, listen, we owe the people an explanation of what we're doing here. Let's do a release. And the FBI, who seems to be having more control of the case than the sheriff's department or sheriff's office does, says, we're not going to tell people what we're doing here. We don't want, people to start driving around and looking at this place. We're just not going to make a statement. And the sheriff might have said at that point, you don't understand. This could cost me an election down the line. I have responsibilities that you don't have. And, those are the things that cause tension and may have been part of the reason that the sheriff's department was so invested in sending DNA to a lab in Florida instead of sending it to the FBI lab.
The fact that what we saw last night, you had the house hit, they went into the house, got the people, the two targets out. At the same time, they did the traffic stop close by with the other man, who I think was related to the people in the house too, and had just gone to get food. Is what
I've seen the
FBI. But it happened simultaneously.
They come from
why would
all
they have done it that way? Like, why wait till that guy's
stop
out
this
going to get food
guy on a
and
motorcycle
the
once.
house at the same time? Why not just wait till he got back?
Summer morning.
It seemed like that was planned.
I don't think it necessarily was. I mean,
right?
Because you
just
don't
a block
if you
away
get
from
somebody
me. I
at
was
their
going
own
to
home,
work or something.
it's a lot safer for everybody than getting somebody at a traffic
that
stop
was
at a
awesome.
fast food restaurant. You can put people in danger that way. However, when you're dealing with 20-some SWAT operators and maybe 40 or 50
the guy
agents, deputies, and
across the street, 3 doors down.
teams,
this is 20 years ago. But they kept there people staking out the house, and every time nobody was staking it out the house,
when they say
he would show up on his motorcycle.
6:10
Came out
or
there
8:10
sweeping
or
his porch off and
9:15,
shit.
whatever. Everything is moving, and you just can't stop it at that point, except to say the whole operation's off. You can't just park 40 cars on the side of a major thoroughfare and say, "We'll wait," because it's a Friday night. People are out. People are going to call. You're just tipping your hand, and so this is not unusual to say, "Hey, the person we were looking for just boogied," They likely had a surveillance team watching the house and said, hey, one person just left. And the case agent, if I were the case agent, would say, send somebody with him, follow him, let us know, we'll come hook him up wherever you find him. And so I think that's likely what happened.
I read that the sheriff said this morning that, and it's interesting when he does interviews, he says something a little different each time, it seems, but he said, this we could find Nancy in days, or this could take years.
All right.
Which I thought was an interesting comment. What is your sense? I mean, they're obviously making progress. They released the photos, those photos from the camera. They're doing these raids and search warrants. But do you think they're getting closer?
Yes, I think they're getting closer, and I think the speed at which they're getting closer is rising.
Well, I wasn't paying
anybody who's done
attention, and I
crossword
ran out
puzzles
of gas.
or
I
jigsaw
looked up.
puzzles realize
I
that
think
right
I
at the
ran out of
beginning,
gas right at the
you've just
finish
got no
line.
help. Once you get just a few words and stuff, you get the frame around it. Now what do we do? And I think they've got the point where they've got the frame done, and they're looking for a couple of big pieces. And once you get those pieces, everything seems to fall in line after that. And so I think we're to the point where larger pieces are going to start to fall. And I don't think this is going to go cold. I've been wrong in the past, but
16 on the medium.
there's too much out there for this to go very cold with today's technology.
Especially with that DNA.
Finish on the soft.
I mean, that seems like, I think back to the Idaho case when they did the ancestral DNA. I mean, even if you're not in a database, they can find your third cousin and then back in that way.
Yeah. Or as I found, I had a third cousin that I didn't know about. So yeah, you find all sorts of things out through that, and again, I'm like everyone else. I'm hoping that DNA is from the suspect.
But
it's not just that.
No, 7 after
it's
10.
The technology to
Valentine
pick up lost video from that ring camera.
Valentine's Day, everybody.
And
see you
be
later.
able to
Remember,
find out